Okay, welcome to Africa. We're going to look at African empires in West Africa in particular. All right, and I have Dr. Luke with me, and she's going to help us work our way through some of this information. Now, y'all remember Mansa Musa? We talked about him in class yesterday. Doc, do you remember Mansa Musa?
No, I don't remember that much about Mansa Musa. Can you tell me a little information about him?
All right, he's probably one of the most well-known kings of um, the Mali Empire. Um, make sure you get this information over here. All right, and one of the things about him was, as a Muslim, he's going to take this Hajj to Mecca. This Hajj is going to be extremely important and have all kinds of implications for Africa in the future.
Oh, I think I remember now. He's the one that traveled quite a bit throughout. Um,
No, you're mixing him up with Ibn Battuta, but close. Ibn Battuta wrote about him.
oh, that's right. I remember now. Okay.
Now, if you look at this map, one of the things that sticks out is him. This is actually a European map, and he is at the center of this map, all right, holding a gold nugget. And that tells you what Europeans were trying to figure out. Where is this guy? And where was he from, and how is he getting that wealth? All right, we're going to come back to Mansa Musa in just a minute. But right now, let's think about, what do you normally think about when you think of Africa?
I think about a vast amount of land and resources, diamonds, gold, just a lot of resources there, minerals.
Now, see, most people think of war, and I mean, like when I was a kid, famine was the big thing. Um, I used to have this show on television, and all they showed was these images of like this of Africa. Um, Never once considered that wealth was there. Okay, but you had the opportunity to travel over there.
Yes, I did. I had an opportunity in 89, 1989, and 90 to go to the west coast of Africa. I was in Liberia during that time period when the second coup was started.
Ooh, okay, that sounds scary. Now, let's take a look at the Sahara. We talked about this in class, okay? The Sahara Desert. Did you go there?
No, I didn't have an opportunity to go there.
Okay. Now, looking at the Sahara, I mean, this has got to be one of the craziest places to travel across because it's extremely hot and you need a pack animal like a camel. And once they start using camels, this is going to increase, the camel is actually going to increase trans-Saharan trade. Make sure you get that part down. All right. And because the trans-Saharan trade increase, that's going to lead to West Africa organizing into powerful kingdoms like Ghana, Mali, and the Songhai. All right. And at the center of this is going to be this city, Timbuktu. Bet you heard of that before.
Yes, as I was growing up, we always joked about Timbuktu and being far away, but I really never knew much about Timbuktu.
All right, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Now, make sure you get this part here about Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. These are the three major kingdoms of Africa, West Africa. And largely, they make their money or their wealth on trade. All right, by controlling trade. That is gold to salt trade. All right. The first major kingdom let's take a look at is Ghana. All right. And again, they took control of this gold salt trade. So salt's coming from North Africa and gold is making its way back up. All right.
So, why was salt so important?
They needed the salt to preserve the food. All right, so they didn't have salt down in Central Africa, and that salt is going to be extremely important. So important that you would trade gold for it.
That's incredible.
All right, make sure you get this information here um, about the Kumbi using iron. Um, this is really important. So, some of the early kings, they made a choice to limit the amount of gold. And by limiting the amount of gold that was traded, the price stayed high all the time, kind of artificially pumping the price up. All right. And again, long trek. All right. But not only did gold make its way to North Africa, Islam is going to make its way into Central Africa via trade. All right. So as this trade routes are popping off here all throughout, what's going to happen is an exchange of ideas where Islam comes into Central Africa. All right. And in fact, some of the first Muslims in the United States were African slaves. Okay. Let's look at Mali, the second one. This is probably the most important empire of the three. All right. It's often called the Empire of the Mandinka. All right. Founded by Sundiata Ali.
And that was a great king, a great warrior.
Yep. He's going to expand the empire largely through taking over some of his neighbors. All right. But he's going to make sure that the gold salt trade that was extremely important goes through his kingdom. All right. And this is where the city Timbuktu really starts to take off. All right. Now, later on, we're going to get to a guy named Mansa Musa. And this is where he begins to play a role. In fact, I want you to hear this piece on Mansa Musa.
So there was this king, Mansa Musa, who ruled the West African Empire of Mali, and in 1324-ish, he left his home and made the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. He brought with him an entourage of over 1,000 people, some sources say 60,000, and most importantly, 100 camel loads of gold. I wish it had been donkeys, so I could say he had 100 ass loads of gold, but no, camels. Right. So along the way, Mansa Musa spent freely and gave away lots of his riches. Most famously, when he reached Alexandria, at the time one of the most cultured cities in the world, he spent so much gold that he caused runaway inflation throughout the city that took years to recover from. He built houses in Cairo and in Mecca to house his attendants, and as he traveled through the world, a lot of people, notably the merchants of Venice, no thought bubble, like actual merchants of Venice, right, they saw him in Alexandria and returned to Italy with tales of Mansa Musa's ridiculous wealth, which helped create the myth in the minds of Europeans that West Africa was a land of gold, an El Dorado, the kind of place you'd like to visit, and maybe, you know, in 5 centuries or so, begin to pillage. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So
All right, make sure you can answer that question up at the top. You're going to have to go on Google to be able to do it, but you should be able to figure that out without too much trouble. Mr. Green, what did you...
Mr. Mays, I have a question. I read an article from 2012 that said Musa was the richest man ever. I thought it was this Warren Buffett guy.
No, actually, I think that article might be right. In fact, when they bring in the homework tomorrow, most of them should find that same article. All right. Hey, what about Timbuktu?
My parents told me to go there all the time.
All right, and this was the heart of the gold salt trade. In fact, look at the architecture in terms of the design. This is extremely unique. I'm not sure. Is that made out of mud?
It actually looks like it might.
All right. Now, you look at, they traded all kinds of stuff along this trade route. Salt, copper, ivory, slaves. And slavery at this time, like I said, existed all over the world. It wasn't unique to Africa. All right. Cloth, books, but there wasn't a large slave trade, but there was slaves. But what do you think the biggest and most important thing was?
Salt. Of course, salt.
Yes, ma'am, salt. In fact, if you look here, I mean, this is what salt looks like in its natural state. Slabs of rock. All right, you don't think about it when you're eating your food, but I mean, sprinkle that on there. All right, the last group is the Songhai. All right, and this kind of marks the end of Africa's golden age here. After Musa's death, a series of rulers are going to come along that are going to be far too interested in other things, and next thing you know, boom, they're going to get conquered by a group with advanced technology. All right, but their most important ruler of the Songhai is Sunni Ali. All right, he's going to conquer Timbuktu in 1468. All right, now a little bit more about the slave trade. Most people figure, it was just like the European slave trade, but it wasn't. The European slave trade, they were looking for men. Here, they were looking mostly for women. And we're not talking a large number of slaves that were exported around the world. Just literally probably a few thousand.
Wow. I never knew that. I never knew that they were mostly looking for women.
Yep. As servants and concubines. Now, remember that word syncretism? Okay. Well, syncretism is the blending of old beliefs with a new religion. So like in Africa, Islam is going to be blended with traditional African beliefs. It's called animism, which just means everything has a spirit. All right. And if you think back to old Roman Roman holidays, when Christianity came along, all right, it was blended. In fact, look at this group of eggs here and tell me, what does that have to do with Christianity and syncretism? See if you can explain that. Okay, that's it. I got a couple more questions for you. Bring that in. You should have 4 questions altogether. Bring that in tomorrow, and we will see you then.
See you tomorrow.